Hello, I know it's really random of me to make a video right now after all this time, but I've been seeing all these tags going around and I thought they looked really fun and I couldn't help myself. This is the Playing with Your Emotions tag from the awesome Raylene from Pad Foot and Prongs '07. I will put her link down below, but I'm sure most of you are familiar with her and this tag already, so let's just get started. So the first question is, which book makes you feel happy? When I first thought about this, I figured it would be something really whimsical and light and fun with like funny characters or something. So I was looking through my shelf and nothing really stuck out to me. And then I realized that those were more of the types of books that I would read when I was younger. And then I had a complete light bulb moment because honestly, the books that make me the happiest when I'm reading them are definitely books about birds. So I chose this book, In the Company of Crows and Ravens. I do enjoy reading about birds in general. There's just something even more satisfying about reading of a particular group of birds, and you can delve into more detail about interesting things like social structure and behavior that are more personal to that group of birds, and that just makes it really interesting to me for some reason. And the corvids are particularly fascinating because of their intelligence and their proximity to people. So, yeah. So the next question is, which book makes you sad? But I'm actually going to skip this one and get back to it at the end because I'm actually waiting on that book to come in the mail, which is kind of weird, but yeah, I'd prefer to have it in the video, so I'll just skip it for now. So the next one is, which book makes you angry? And for me, that is definitely, unfortunately, The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. And yes, that's because of the main character, which normally me disliking a main character doesn't make me dislike a book, but I don't know why. I guess he just irritated me that much, and I can't really get into detail about it or explain it. It's not fresh enough in my memory to do that because I read it kind of a while ago. Although I do recall a few scenes in particular that did make me quite angry at the time, but I better not get into that or else this video will be way too long. Next is, which book makes you feel the most nostalgic? Anything that reminds me of the time when I was first getting into reading, or at least the first books I can remember getting excited about. Those are books like the Goosebumps series, Poppy, the Roald Dahl books. But if I had to choose just one book that makes me feel the most nostalgic, that would definitely be Harry Potter. I know, not very original of me, but it's true. It reminds me of my childhood the most because me and my sister and our friends were just really crazy about it, and we used to go outside and play all kinds of games revolving around Harry Potter, and I honestly have a lot of fond memories of that. The next emotion is scared. I haven't really read that many books that made me feel scared mostly because I don't read that many horror books, I guess. I've definitely gotten an adrenaline rush from various different books, but nothing that really affected me in the way that this book has, and that is Unbroken by Lauren Hillenbrand. This is actually a nonfiction book. I think that's what made it even more scary to me. People actually had to go through these things, and many still do today. And yes, I guess that's what war does to people, but it's just scary that people can act that way and treat each other so horribly. The next emotion is surprised, and I felt like there was a few different ways you could approach this one. You could think of it as which book surprised you while you were reading it, plot-wise or something, or which book surprised you expectation-wise. And the book I chose is sort of both of those, but it's also something a little different. And that book is Life of Pi by Yann Martel. I don't know if I'm going to be able to explain this very well. There were definitely surprises to the plot, and it was better than I thought it was going to be. But what surprises me the most about this book is that I like it, and how much I like it. It's one of my favorite books, and I'd say it's one of the few books where I disagree with the author, or I guess I should say the protagonist's thoughts and opinions on certain topics, but I could still appreciate their perspective. And normally that would annoy me a lot, and I think the reason it didn't is because this character's story and background. Everything was laid on the table. And he seems like someone I could have a very interesting discussion or debate with without there being a lot of tension or resentment, at least on my part. I guess I can't really speak for the character, but it seemed like he would be very open and willing to listen to what you had to say. Basically, this character didn't irritate me because I think it's easier to judge someone when you don't know their story or their background. And in this story, you come to understand this character's beliefs and thought processes. I found that very enlightening, especially since I know there are a lot of people like this in real life. And as far as the ending goes, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm going to use an analogy to talk about it. So think of it as the difference between argumentative essays and persuasive essays. I would say that the ending is sort of more like an argumentative essay, where it seems to be swaying you to one side, but there's actually room for interpretation. So that's why, even though I'm on the opposing side of what the author presents, I still appreciate the other side. I don't think it's worthless, and I don't even think it's wrong to feel the opposite. Because to me, it isn't even about one or the other. You can actually, in my opinion, have both. I mean, it's like the blurb on the cover. It says, "A story to make you believe in the soul-searching power of fiction." Because there is value in fiction and things outside the factual realm, if you will. If you've ever taken mythology, you've probably discussed a similar thing. Anyways, I'm talking way too much about that book. So moving on, the next question is, which book makes you feel distressed? Never mind, I was jumping ahead. The next one is actually disappointed. So the book that disappointed me, I would say, would be Uglies by Scott Westerfeld. Didn't disappoint me in the sense of I thought I would like it and then I didn't, because I did end up liking it. There were certain things that disappointed me as I was reading it, the direction the story took, and there were things he would briefly touch on and then never pursue again, and those were things that really caught my interest, and I was hoping he would elaborate on or make into a powerful message. And I think a lot of his themes and character development was kind of weak. And that is understandable in a way because it's the first book in a series of books. There's a lot of room for that kind of development. But at the same time, I think he was sending too many mixed messages within this book. Well, it came across to me that way, at least personally. So that really disappointed me. Next emotion is distressed, and the first book that came to mind immediately was Mockingjay from the Hunger Games trilogy, but then I thought of a better choice, which is The Illustrated Man by Ray Bradbury, because not only did this distress me, it distressed me enough that I had to put it down and stop reading it, which was really unfortunate because I really liked it, and at the time the only copy I had was a library copy, so I had to give it back and I wasn't able to finish it. But now I have it, so hopefully I'll finish it eventually. I mean, it's really not that bad. Most of the stories are very dismal and depressing and gloomy, but I think it's just because at the time, the things that were happening in my life, some of the stories just resonated with me a little too well and really got to me. The next emotion is confused, and I actually had a hard time thinking of a book for this, so I just decided on one that I finished recently, which is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, which I did read on my Kindle. I would say conflicted is the more accurate emotion for this book. There were some confusing elements like the lack of quotation marks when people were speaking sometimes but not other times. That got a little confusing. How it would sort of switch between talking about the past versus the present kind of randomly. But for the most part, I kept up with it just fine and I understood what was going on. No problems there, but what confuses me about this book is I don't know how to feel about it. Because I thought it was a really good book, written really well, very interesting. I was never bored throughout it, but it just didn't have a big impact on me or something. I don't know. I'm just very confused about my opinion of this book. Now I'm able to go back to the previous question about which book makes you feel sad, and that would be The White Bone by Barbara Gowdy. I don't actually recall if this book actually made me cry or not, but this had to be my choice because I tend to find that animal cruelty and struggles affect me really deeply and evoke a lot of sadness from me. And that stems from the way I empathize with them. There's, a communication barrier and very big differences in levels of understanding and the way we perceive things. And I just find that adds to their defenselessness. I seem to get attached to animals a lot easier than I do to people, so that also contributes to it. The overall tone of this book is very sad and hopeless, and it just makes me feel very helpless because even though this is fiction, there are a lot of fantasy elements to it. A lot of it is based in reality, and I just find it incredibly sad. Well, that's it for this video. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.